Hey everybody, welcome to Difference Makers. My name is Pastor Tyler Warner. You're watching us here on BGTV. Today we're doing the third part of our series about living a complete life in Christ, about not just focusing on one aspect of your life, but making every piece not just wonderful, but glorifying to our God. And we're going to get that to in just a second, but I want to let you know one more time about ironworks.media. We at Calvary Chapel Trustville are building the premier Christian resource network. We're working very hard on it. We're still in our very early stages, but you can get on it right now. We've got all sorts of great things for you. We got the new book that just came out called The Desolation of Israel, which we've had the opportunity to talk about that in some public places lately on the radio and elsewhere. And I pray that you will take a look at that and also be in prayer for us as we try to get the message of that book out there. You can join our mailing list there at ironworks.media. Download 2 free ebooks right away. We've got all sorts of free resources for you there too, podcasts, videos, that sort of thing, as well as some of those books that are available for a cost, but most of it is there for free. And if you join the mailing list, you'll be able to know about all the things we got coming up this year. We got another big book launch coming up this fall, so you're not going to want to miss that, I promise you. And we're going to talk about that here on the show when the time gets close. And if you want more information about the church I pastor, you can go to CalvaryChapelTrustville.com. So here at Difference Makers, this is all about motivating and inspiring you to live the life that God has called you to live. We just got a chance to talk about that on Sunday at Calvary Chapel Trustville, and every now and then you hit your favorite verse as you're teaching verse by verse, and that happened on this Sunday, so we got the chance to talk all about that. But here at Difference Makers, we do it every week, and we've been trying to examine every aspect of a person's life to see how we can maximize that, make it wonderful, and also leverage it for the Lord. And I want to make sure that I'm making myself very clear when I say this. When I say to use it for the Lord, I don't mean that you need to try to make every part of your life religious. You understand what I mean when I say that? I'm not saying that you've got to take we talk about the domestic life, your house, your chores. Does not need to be some way of turning it into a missions outreach. As great as that would be, but as Christians we can think that sometimes, that if it's not religious, then it's not spiritual, which is simply not the case. What we're talking about is inviting God into every aspect of your life, maximizing every aspect of your life, as well as a safeguard against feeling bitter or sad if something in your life is not going right. So we started out in part one looking at what we call the inner life, the foundational aspects of a person, the spiritual life, which of course concerns your walk with Jesus. That actually is your religion, right? Your holiness. Number 2 was your physical life. We talked about your health. We talked about your fitness, taking care of your body, not just so that you can look good, but that you can be healthy and so that you can take care of yourself in that regard. And I'll say, if there's a safeguard against feeling bad about yourself, taking care of your body is a great way to do that. And number 3 in that inner life was your personal life, your relationships, your behaviors, how you conduct yourself in your everyday life. So we had that spiritual side, the physical side, and then that inner side, which is your personal life. The second thing we looked at on week 2 was your major responsibilities. That would be the things that I'd say must get done. You have to do these. They're on the to-do list and they shouldn't be removed. In fact, they can't be removed or you're going to be in big trouble. And that included your professional life, which of course is your job, it might be your career, it could be a side hustle, it could be just whatever you do in order to provide for yourself, which leads directly into the next aspect, which was the financial aspect of your life. Your money matters, both taking care of the needs that you have, which are paying bills, paying off debts, as well as dreams that you've got, trying to make a little more, try to have a nicer house, a nicer thing for your family. Nothing wrong with that, of course. The Bible talks a lot about it. And then lastly, we looked at your domestic life, which I'd call that your house and your home. So the house itself, making it look nice, doing it up well. It's amazing to me how much making your house a great place to live will lift your spirits as a person, but not just in the physical aspect of things, but in the home aspect of things, meaning are you taking your family on trips and vacations? Are you looking after your kids? Are you taking care of the people that live in that house and making it a great place to be? As I said, a Christian's life is more than just religion, but it covers every area of their life. As we see exemplified, I got a couple more verses for you right here to make sure I'm not just talking, but we're doing this in the scripture. Luke 2:52 tells us that Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man, which is a summary statement of the fact that Jesus grew up in wisdom, meaning he learned, in stature, he grew and he matured physically, and in favor with God and man. His relationships improved. So you're seeing that even our Lord, as a man, was living out an everyday normal life in every part of its aspects, and so should we. And then the verse that I had the blessing to teach on Sunday, which is one of my favorites to read, 1 Corinthians 7:17, says, "Only let each person lead the life that the Lord has assigned to him and to which God has called him." And we might have to take some time and dive into that verse a little more closely seriously after this last study that we did in 1 Corinthians. Man, God has given you a life. And it is not just that you have a purpose in your life. It is that your life itself, living it out, is purposeful. What God has given you in all of its aspects is a gift, and you should be living it out to the fullest. So we've looked at the inner life, those things that are very personal to you and are never really going to change. You're always going to have your spirit, you're always going to have your body, you're always going to have your mind or your heart, or however you want to put that. We looked at the major responsibilities, your job and your money and all the rest of it. Today we're going to look at what I'll call the fun stuff. It's not just the fun stuff, but this is the part that maybe we don't give as much attention to as believers. We don't give as much attention to making this making it great and certainly not subordinating it to the Lord. These are the pursuits that get us excited. These things that we do that become blessings and are entirely essential for living what we'd call a well-lived life. And I say that even these things that we talk about today ought to be maximized for the glory of Jesus. And that as you live your life to its fullest, that gives glory to the Lord, that the people that walk with Jesus have abundant life, John 10:10. And I will say that if you neglect these aspects of your life, even the ones that might seem frivolous to you, you will find that you're slowly undercutting the significance and the value to you of the other parts that we would agree are important. So we'll start with what I guess is number 7, but number 1 for today in the fun parts of life. And I'm going to call this the educational part of your life. That might not sound fun, but as you get older, you're going to realize that this is less necessary than some of the other things, and yet can actually contribute an awful lot. So when I say fun stuff, I'm kind of being facetious here. But what do I mean by education? Well, I mean by learning new things. It's that simple. This can be formal education, which is when you're going to get a degree, you're trying to earn a certificate, you're trying to get a qualification for something, or it can be a simple studying and learning things on your own. I hope that we all would be, to use the term, autodidactic. That is, we are teaching ourselves. All of our lives should be educational. Now, this is something that starts out in your life as a very big part. And if you're young and you're watching this, and you're still in school, then this education piece probably is higher up on the list than something even like finances or your domestic life. Maybe you don't even have a profession yet. When you're in high school, obviously, that's all that you're really doing. But this reduces later. Obviously, you start out, being very educated, and as time goes on, you do less of that. And most of us, many of us maybe, will end up doing no education past a certain point. So when you're in school, this is your job. My dad used to say, your job is to get good grades. Even when I had a job, and I got a job as soon as I was allowed. I was one of those kids. I wanted to be making money, and it was fun to do that. But my dad used to remind me, he says, you've got work, but don't forget, your job is to go to school and to do well. That's my priority. And it should be the case for you as well. I know that school can be fun, and I know that it's great being around your friends, and that there's activities, and there's sports, and there's everything else. But the most important thing is that you are getting that education, because that's what's going to last past that. Although I would never want to suggest that those other things are not important. They really very much are. But as you get older, what happens is you graduate high school, you graduate college, maybe you get a master's degree or something like that, and you move on. And I would say that just about every adult at some point or other has wished that he took school a little more seriously. Even if you got good grades, you think, I had to take that stupid personal finance class, and I just spent time joking with my friends all the time. That would have been really nice to pay attention to. Or you think back on some of the electives that you took. Like, what was the point of taking that class when they were offering, something else? I remember my school had a business class, a senior business class that was about, starting a business and being an entrepreneur. I didn't take that. I took choir. And I think back, I had good times in choir. I had a good time in my creative writing class. I had a good time in that physics class I took for some reason. But I probably would have benefited a lot more from that business class. You understand? We all have that idea that maybe we should have, taken it more seriously. And I bet you if you're past maybe 25, getting up to 30 years old, you think back to your time, especially in college, and you think, if I were to go to college now, I bet you I'd get an awful lot more out of that. I would kind of know what I want. I'd have a little bit of life behind me, and I would be focused on what I'm trying to do. And maybe we ought to consider going to college a little bit later when you actually know a little bit of something. But in any case, after you graduate, you ought to be keeping this aspect of your life alive. You ought to be learning. You ought to be growing mentally, but not just in your IQ, so to speak, but in the knowledge that you are gaining. And this might seem like the kind of thing that isn't really relevant to your life, but consider it like this. Every job you have will benefit from you learning more across a diversity of fields. I'm not just talking about, math and science or whatever it is, but I'm saying that if you are in a certain job and you're taking the time to learn more about the world, to learn more about life, whatever it may be, that is only going to help you. Learning a new thing is never going to hurt you in your job, if you understand what I'm saying. I would say that if you've got a job that you're working, you have a profession, or you have a dream, You need to be studying in those related areas. Even if it's something as simple as, I used to drive a junk truck, as I often say. Business management was very important to me. The little bit that I had about that subject was crucial, and I put it all to the test, and I had to learn a lot more. If you're involved in some company of a certain product that's being made, learning about the product, but also learning about distribution, learning about the things that are above your pay grade, asking your boss about stuff, learning about accounting, learning about finances, that's only ever going to help you. And if it ever comes to a point where you're supposed to be promoted or there's opportunities that are available, trying to transfer somebody else, if you have experience in your job, and you've been over here learning accounting on the side, learning about investing on the side, learning about business management, that's only going to come across and redound to your benefit. So you should be studying that. I would say even general knowledge can open up other doors for you. The more you investigate your own field, the more you learn about how you can grow in your field. But if you start learning other aspects of life, other aspects of knowledge, you are going to start to see how you can combine things in places that maybe they'd not been combined before. If you're paying close attention to what's going on technologically, you might be able to consider how you can apply that to your job. Right now, at the time of recording, AI is the big, whether boogeyman or savior of the world, depending on how you look at it. But if you're in your job and you're doing the same thing that everybody else has done, but you're also over here learning about AI, you're learning about how it can be utilized, you're understanding the tools, that's not maybe related to your job, but you can be the one to learn how to tie those things together. So gives you a pathway forward. And I would say even things that are not specifically related to business, but just in your own life, that in your house, in your relationships, in your church. And maybe even in this point, you should consider, if you have graduated, is it time to go back? I don't know, school is expensive, and it's really a shame how expensive it is right now. But if you've been working for a year, even 5 years, 10 years, 15, and you know that you have some life experience now, but you kind of know what you'd like to do and you think you'd be good at it, maybe you ought to consider going back and getting some formal education. But in any case, I urge everybody to spend time learning in your life, to have an educational aspect to your life, even if it's a small one. What are some things that I think would be useful for anybody to learn? Languages, man. Learn a new language. If you are in business and you are equal to everybody else, but you can speak Spanish, you've got a leg up on everybody else. Or you can speak French or Arabic or Chinese or whatever it is. That automatically is going to raise you up. And also, I found it's fun to learn languages. Learning history. Why does history help you? Because the more you learn about how things have been, the more you learn about how things are going to move in the future. It also makes you a more interesting person. It makes you a better citizen. It makes you less likely to be duped by people that want to bring something along. I've already mentioned finances and business. If you're going to be learning how to handle finances, both personally and professionally, learning how to manage people, learning what a balance sheet is, what a profit and loss statement is, learning how a board tend to organize themselves, all of a sudden, you've made yourself more useful to the person that is hiring you. I mentioned technology. All of these things are only going to help you. Nobody is ever going to say, why did I learn Spanish? Why did I spend time learning all these other things? And maybe you feel like it hasn't taken you anywhere, but you're opening up opportunities, and you're also making yourself a more interesting person, a more well-rounded person. So what does this mean practically? Read things, friends. Take the time to read. Find out about events that are going to be maybe not so fun, but they might be useful to you, and start introducing yourself to people that might be able to teach you something. So this is the educational aspect of your life. If you don't have this in your life at all, I would encourage you to develop it. For myself as a pastor, I'm kind of cheating because I have to study the Bible every week, but there are some preachers, man, I'll tell you, they don't study anything. They kind of get an idea, and they're good at spinning it and putting a verse on it when they get up there in the pulpit. But we have a responsibility, gentlemen, to study, to learn the biblical languages, learn the Bible backgrounds, to study the Word of God, and to learn theology and learn it all well. There's an educational aspect to your life. Number 2, which is number 8 overall, this is the fun one. This is the creative aspect of your life. The creative aspect of your life. What is creativity? It's not complicated. This is your way to develop a skill to express yourself, whether that's in song, in drawing and painting, in writing, in dance. I've never known an adult that really loves to express themselves in dance, unless maybe on TikTok, I guess. But any creative endeavor, anything that is not just you consuming something, but you creating something, creative, making something, designing something, bringing something into existence that did not used to exist. And I'll tell you what, I could have placed this one ahead of education. We're kind of moving from serious to less serious, but I would say for most of us, our creativity might be more important than our education. I found in my life that if I neglect my creativity because I'm constantly reading, I'm constantly hustling, I'm constantly grinding, that's when life starts to feel dry. It should not be neglected in your life. And I'd say that if you've got your education pretty squared away, creativity needs to move up the list. Because if all we ever do is work on things that are going to progress us and grow us and give us a return on our investment, that's when life starts to feel stale. That's when it starts to feel like all I ever do is work. Even when I'm not working, I'm working. Even if I'm home reading a book, I'm reading a book to get better at this. Even when I'm going to the gym, I'm going to the gym to get in shape, which will make me a better person. And that can really start to feel stale. But if you can introduce a creative aspect to your life, you have something that is going to grow you and benefit you, but it's going to be so much fun, number one, but also number two, it's going to be so much, it's going to be so enjoyable for you and give you a reason to get up in the morning that it will really take the pressure off some of these other things and allow you to start enjoying them again too. You need to have something that you do creatively. And I would say this is for everyone. Not everybody is going to be Leonardo da Vinci and be a polymath and know how to do everything, but you need to have something in your life. It's sort of like, I'm going to use a video game illustration here. You'll pardon the millennial right now, but you need to have other skill trees in your life that you're opening up. Not just the things that matter, relationships, obviously, church and ministry. Okay, great. Work and hustling and working hard. Yeah, that's great. But have you ever considered opening up painting? Have you ever considered opening up design? Have you ever considered opening up writing something? You need to have something that will allow you to enjoy yourself without consuming something. You know what I mean? If you're writing a book as opposed to reading a book, you are contributing and making something and developing yourself as a person. Making a movie as opposed to watching a movie. You talk about things I wish I could have learned how to do. Making movies is one of them. I love to watch movies and I love to see how they were made, but I don't know, maybe that ship has kind of sailed in my life, or maybe I'm just preaching to myself right now. You need to have this. And I would say most of us have a creative dream of some kind. Most of us have a thought in our mind that, man, I could have learned how to do that. I could have learned how to write or how to dance or play guitar. I remember for myself, I played trombone when I was in school, and I really regret giving that up because not only was I pretty good at it, I enjoyed it. I loved playing in the band and being a part of the concert and being able to pull out some of these classic musical pieces. I play guitar now, but there's this whole wing of, Bach and Mozart that is just off limits to me now because there's no way for me to have access to it, and I really regret having that out of my life. Maybe you've got something that you just did and now you just neglected it. You didn't give it up. You didn't have to leave it behind, but you just neglected it. And I would say that when we start an adult life, there's things that have to be let go. I say it a lot. I had to let go of martial arts. I loved doing it. There just wasn't time and there wasn't money for it in my life. But that's okay. I had a son. I got married and had a son, and that's much better than, doing karate, which is what I was doing. But as you progress in your adult life, what can start to happen is all the pieces of life that you enjoy the most just get pushed to the side and get forgotten. And that seems mature and seems like progress at the time, but the longer you do it, the more bitter you get about it because everybody else is getting the best parts of you. Meanwhile, all the things that you enjoy the most, all the things that made you excited, that put brightness and sparkle back in your eyes, are being left behind. And this is not good. And I've found that for myself, even when I want to do it and I have time to do it, I'll always be looking for another responsibility that I can fulfill first. But I'm here to tell you, you have biblical permission from me, if you like, to write, to sing, to paint. I know somebody that does latte art, and she goes to competitions and does it. She lives in, Seattle, so there you go. I mean, that's kind of what they do out there. Whether you're chainsawing sculptures into a tree, whatever it is, I give you permission to make that an important and central part of your life. There are whole worlds that open up when you find something creative to do that you'll never have access to otherwise that can be very rewarding. I think when I go by the library sometime, I'd love to learn how to draw and paint. You see on the wall, they'll have the paintings that were done. And I think to myself, I don't know where these folks got together. I don't know if there's a club. I don't know if there's a group that gets together. But boy, I sure would love to be a part of that because this is something that I would really love to do. This is something that can open up a whole other wing of your life that you never knew about. God doesn't want you to spend your life working so that you can cash a check and then tithe, but to make something wonderful out of your life. And you will be a happier person for all that. Are there crazy people that take it too far and their family gets neglected because mama's trying to get her book published? Yes, that does happen. But if you have nothing in your life that excites you beyond your work and your responsibilities, I would say revive the creative part of your life and just see what might come of that. So the last one on our list, we're only doing 9 of these in this series, and so this makes us number 3 for today. Number 9 overall of the category I'm calling the fun stuff, even though it even is a little more serious than that. This is the recreational aspect of your life. You might be surprised that I'm bringing this up. Recreation. Recreation is what you do to relax, what you do to enjoy yourself, what you do when you have free time that is not productive. It's just something that you do for fun. And you might say, well, recreation is not important to God. I would challenge you on that. I would say go take a look at the law of Moses once again. Consider the fact that God gave the children of Israel a Sabbath day, meaning they got one day off a week. He gave them a Sabbath year, which is every 7 years they would take a break. Do you realize they didn't work for a year? Other than, maintaining what they had? God said, I'll double up your harvest in year 6, so you don't have to work for year 7. And then every 50 years, they had the Jubilee year, where not only were you not working, but every debt was forgiven, everybody's property went back to zero, and you celebrated all year long. The Lord gave them monthly feasts. He gave them annual feasts and celebrations, week-long parties that God gave them. And yes, they were spiritual, but let's not be Pharisees and make these things into a burden for them. They were there for them. The Lord delights in his people taking delight in their time. So we need to make sure that we are paying attention to this, because if we don't pay attention to it, here's what happens. We do it automatically. An automatic recreation is usually not going to be the way you get the most out of your free time. Automatic recreation is pulling out your phone and scrolling for 45 minutes. Automatic recreation is turning on the TV and seeing what's there and just settling in. Automatic recreation is just doing nothing and then wishing you did something else later. And it doesn't make you happy. Most of the things that we see out there that are there to fill your recreation time are clamoring for your attention just to hook you and hold you. And you finish it up and maybe, you enjoyed that show, but you think, did I really want to watch 5 episodes in a row? So what I'm trying to teach us is to take the time to choose how you will recreate, to choose how you will have fun, to plan it, to get more out of it, and to feel less guilty about it afterwards. There's a couple different things you can see here, and I'm going to go ahead and start with the one that everybody wants to dump on. I just did a little bit of myself here, but there is something good to it. This can be the media that you consume. What do most of us do in our free time? Screen is going on somewhere. TV's coming on, phone's coming on, computer's opening up, whatever it may be. And I'm here to tell you maybe something that you've never heard from a preacher before. That's all great. That's fine. There is nothing wrong with you taking the time at the end of a hard day to work, to stop working and just to sit back and watch a TV show, or to pull up and play a video game, or to just turn on the game and watch that, to listen to music. I used to do this as a teenager. Don't do it so much anymore. I would sit there and listen to a CD. I would go out with my friends. We'd have a CD listening party. We'd put it in. We would just listen to the whole thing start to finish. And somebody starts to talk. We go, shut up, bro. Just listen to it. That was kind of my thing as a kid. But there's nothing wrong with doing that. I would encourage you, though, how would you do this a little differently? Don't just do it automatically. Think about it ahead of time. For my sake, it would be something like this. Plan at the beginning of the week that on Thursday, the family's going to watch a movie together. Maybe my wife and I are going to watch something the kid can't watch yet. Or maybe you're going to plan it out ahead of time instead of just getting back and doing the same thing you always did. Your recreation can also be activities, not just something that you consume, but something you participate in. And for a lot of folks, this is just going out with friends, going out to dinner, going out and partying, not doing anything sinful, obviously, but, going to a party. I said this to my wife the other day. I said, when was the last time we went to a party? She goes, I don't know. And I had to clarify, that was not a birthday party for some 5-year-old child. But hanging out with your friends, doing things that are outdoors. A lot of us love to go out. We like to fish. We like to hunt. We like to camp, whatever it may be. It could be a trip. I love to take fun trips. I kind of live for the vacation. I don't mind saying that. For going, whether it is, to Disney World or to Gatlinburg, or traveling up to visit family, or going somewhere maybe even a little more special than that. And you know what your recreation time can also be? Doing nothing. Sometimes we can be the opposite way, where we try to plan our recreation so much that it's not even fun anymore. It's like, I just have to make sure that I get through everything, and I got to make sure I watch every show, and make sure that I finish everything so I can talk about it, and make sure that my YouTube feed is always up to date. Man, what a miserable way to live. Sometimes just laying down and resting is the most spiritual thing you can do. For my own sake, I found that if I just drift in my time of recreation, I just come home and sit down on the couch with no plan, no thought, no things that I tend to do, I'll be unhappy. I'll fill the time, but I'll feel like I wasted time. Whereas I'll be missing the things that I really enjoy to be doing. For a common one, I love to go backpacking. I love to go out into the woods and spend a day or two out there on the trail, sleep on the ground in a tent. Maybe it'll rain, maybe it'll be 10 million degrees. I've had both of those things happen. And that takes some planning. It's recreation. It's not going to add anything to my life. It's just going to be fun for me. I love to get out there and shoot a gun, but my gun's been sitting in my closet for a long time. I've not taken the time to go out and do anything with it. It takes a little bit of time and attention. And while it can be fun for me to watch TV sometimes, more often than not, I'm going to feel way more excited about coming home with a fish on a hook than sitting at home and watching another episode. Sometimes I don't want to work at my fun, though, and that's sleep that I get, that's blessed of the Lord. I want to remind you at the end of this not to remove every fun piece out of your life. That's not from the Lord. Your whole life can be done to the glory of God, and I would encourage you even to prioritize and plan your recreation. So we're coming to the end of this list. We talked about the inner life, which was your spiritual, your physical, and your personal aspects of life, your major responsibilities, your professional, your financial, and your domestic aspects of life. And then today, what we kind of called the fun stuff, which would be your education, your creativity, and even your recreation. That's a complete life. I want to give you permission to make every piece of it as great as you can. I could have added more to this if I wanted, but I want to remind you that your whole life matters to God. And if you neglect one piece, it's going to hurt somewhere else. Obviously, if you neglect your job, that's going to hurt, your personal life. It's going to hurt your recreation. Certainly, you ain't got no money coming in. But even if you neglect something like your creativity, everything else, even if you're getting it done, it's just going to feel dry and boring. And certainly, if you neglect the spiritual aspect of life, then the rest of it is going to be difficult to live and to enjoy. I want you to take every aspect of your world and make it wonderful. Not just doing the easy things, but living your life out on purpose. Think about what could make that aspect of your life great and do it as your new goal unto the glory of our Lord Jesus. This has been Difference Makers. Thank you so much for tuning in today. You can find us on BGTV, of course, also on ironworks.media. We're building a premier resource network for the Christian church. Join the mailing list today and get 2 free ebooks downloaded. Check out the new book that is there, The Desolation of Israel. And if you want to find out more about the church, you can go to calvarychapeltrustville.com. Thank you so much for watching today. Now you go out there and you make a difference.